When you were in elementary school, did you ever dream about a robot that could do your homework? I remember seeing it in cartoons. Some kid feeds a worksheet into a robot and poof, all the answers just come out. Well, my friend, we are living in that day and time. Artificial intelligence, AI, is here. And it's not some far off tech buzzword anymore. It's in our schools, in our students' lives, and yes, it's already beginning to change the way we teach and learn. That's why I'm so excited to bring you my very first podcast interview, and it's with someone I admire deeply, and not just because she's my sister-in-law. Kristina Peterson is a high school English teacher, a thoughtful educator, and a leader in the conversation around AI in education. She's been teaching for over 15 years, serves in state and university level leadership roles. She regularly contributes to major education publications and has recently co-authored a book called AI in the Writing Workshop. So yeah, she's just the right person for this conversation. In this episode, we're going to dive into a bunch of things, including ethical considerations that we teachers must think about when it comes to AI. We're going to talk about what the teacher's role is in this age of artificial intelligence, how to help students use AI as a learning tool and not a crutch. And yeah, we're even going to have a few fun practical ideas that you can start using in your classroom, whether you teach elementary or high school. You're going to love this conversation, and I promise you're going to walk away feeling a little bit more grounded in this whole idea of AI, more informed, and even more confident about your role in this ever-evolving digital world. So let's jump in. Welcome to Enjoy Teaching Again, the podcast for teachers who love the work but need a little spark to bring the joy back. I'm your host, Elizabeth Peterson, classroom teacher, arts integration specialist, and passionate educator of over 25 years. If you're overwhelmed by behaviors, disengaged students, and long, exhausting days, you are not alone. But together, we can turn things around and you can teach with confidence and purpose again. So locate that cold coffee of yours, find your favorite pen, I know you have one, and let's dive in. It's time to get inspired and enjoy teaching again. All right, so welcome, Kristina. I'm so excited to have you on my podcast. You are going to be my first guest interviewee.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah. So welcome to Enjoy Teaching Again. And I know that you were a born teacher. Tell a little bit about you and what you teach and where you're at right now.
Sure. So my name is Kristina Peterson. I teach at Exeter High School. I've been there since 2008 now, in the same classroom, thankfully.
Awesome.
And teaching pretty much freshmen through 12th graders. And I recently became a published author as well. My book, AI in the Writing Workshop, came out this spring. And so things have been really busy around AI and how to ethically implement it into my classroom.
Yeah, it's a huge topic, and I'm so glad that I can have you on here so we can talk about this because it's going to infiltrate our lives. It already has, but it is going to really not just our lives, but inside our classrooms. And I know that there was like the last year or two, we got AI sprinkled into our experiences with like, oh, you can use this to help you write emails and help you write report card comments and that kind of thing. But now it is part.
Yeah.
We're just seeing the beginning. So what actually led you to writing about how to use AI in your classroom, in your high school classroom?
Yes. It's kind of a funny story. When AI was first released, I'm sure everyone listening saw the headlines that this was the end of English classrooms and the end of teaching, and we'd all be replaced. And I naively thought that there was no way my students would use AI because I'm a workshop style teacher. And when we do writing, we do a lot of quick writes in notebooks with pen or pencil, and I write alongside them and I workshop with each of them. So I always have kind of my pulse on what they're writing. So there's no way. But I did play around with it. because helping to write emails or report card comments was definitely enticing. So I at least knew what it looked like. So in the end of 2022, right beginning of 2023, there was a work or conference coming up in New Hampshire that I wanted to pitch a session, and I naively called it "How to Bot-Proof Your Classroom," and was very confident that I had all the answers and no AI would ever come into my classroom. And no joke, maybe 4 weeks before the presentation, I was workshopping with a student, and he was writing a slam poem about the 10 reasons he plays football. And it was a countdown style poem, just like the mentors that we had studied. And I did workshop with him in class that Friday. And over the weekend, I asked them all to submit a typed rough draft. And his typed rough draft was definitely not a slam or spoken word poem. It had a weird rhyme scheme, very strange words. It was still about football, but it was definitely not what I saw in class. And when I spoke with him in class on Monday, he very excitedly told me all about ChatGPT. His college age sister had shown it to him, and he was really excited to use it as a rough draft. And he made this comment about how it was just like the mentors that we had studied. It was like another mentor for him. And I stopped in my tracks because I was not ready for this. I had this session that was coming up, but also I could not ignore the fact that he might have a point. And if we can, in fact, see AI as another mentor, could it have a place in the writing workshop? And so, like most things I do, it took like a whole year of writing about this to try and figure it all out. And that's where the book was born.
Yeah, that's so interesting because it just like with so many other things, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
going to have to work with it. So
Mhm.
we've got
It's
to
here.
learn how to work with it. And
Mhm.
I noticed in your book and in the table of contents, it really talks about like these great steps of how you can introduce this idea of the bots and how to
Mhm.
use them. So do you have some like specific ways that you introduce this idea now instead of
Mhm.
having the kids just be like, oh yeah, well I use
Here we
this to do
go.
my homework. Here we go.
Yes, absolutely. Um, when we're using it as a writing partner, we have established a set of really important rules. And these rules shift if we're using it as a thought partner or research partner. But anytime we're using it as a writing partner, rule number one is to write first. And this is still in our notebooks. And I'm really clear with my students and when I present that when I only have control over what happens in the 55 minutes of my class period. So the second they leave my classroom, even if they have their cell phone in their pocket, they can access AI. But I do feel that writing your own ideas first and establishing your own voice is crucial, but it has to be done in the classroom and in pen and paper. I can't expect them to do it outside of my room because
Mm-hmm,
many of them won't.
mm-hmm.
So we write first. Struggle second is rule number two. And that's the one I get the most questions about. How do you make a student struggle? That productive struggle is so crucial. How do you do
Yep.
it? And my only answer again is in class, and I have to do it in front of them. And in my 20 years of teaching, writing in front of my students has been the hardest part, even harder than AI now, especially because I have 5 different sections and I have to do it over and over and over, and I have to do it as authentically as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't show them the importance of struggling, and if they don't help me come up with an idea and I show that magic of that moment, they're not going to do it. We're just going to kind of keep faking our way through it. So I have to write with them, which also changes up a lot of the things I ask them to write because I don't want to write about Lord of the Flies or Macbeth anymore. So we change up a lot of our writing assignments, not just because of AI, but also because this productive struggle is so important.
Mm.
And then it's not until we have struggled and we know where our struggle is. Maybe it's coming up with a title. I hate coming up with titles of things. Or maybe it's how to write a stronger beginning or a stronger end. And it's only when we know exactly what we want help with that I show them how to prompt engineer and how to use a safe generative AI bot in order to ask specifically what you want, and then I model. Rule number 4 is to question, because sometimes it gets things wrong. It's biased many times, it
Mm-hmm.
hallucinates. So I have to model that for them. They have to question, they have to explore, is this exactly what I wanted from it? Or is this changing my entire voice or my entire meaning? And then we reflect and we're transparent about what they used. Sometimes it looks like they're changing that sentence to a new color. Sometimes, if it's a research paper and they're using it as a secondary source, they might actually quote Gemini or whatever the source is. And then they're honest about the extent they used it. So those are the 5 rules.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually quite good. Going on that for a second, I remember putting forth a research paper for a journal, and they were allowing the use of AI as long as you disclose what it is you're using it for and how much of it is actually being used. So, I mean, this is like real life, legit stuff we're talking about here.
Yes.
And I love that right from that first step, is having them get pen to paper. And, as an elementary teacher, we get to do that a lot more. At least at the beginning of things. And I really love hearing that it's also in high school, because I think a lot of adults, they rough draft right on the computer. What I found is, because I'm rough drafting right on the computer, I have AI right there, just in case. I can just go to ChatGPT.
So tempting.
It is so tempting, but giving yourself that moment to just really, what is it that I want to say? And like you said, what is your voice and what is it that you want to convey? And then modeling. Another thing that we talk about so much in elementary is, we have to model. And I think that is so powerful, just to pause for a second as a couple of teachers and realize that the modeling and the guiding, which I think we'll get to in a little bit, even more so, is just the most important part when we're introducing anything new and innovative to our kids. So I love that. I really love that.
People have asked oftentimes, like, what is the most powerful tool I use? And it really is a pencil and a notebook. I mean, even to the point where we didn't actually get a whole lot of choice in the cover art of our book. They kind of asked us some questions, and then they gave us 3 examples. And the pencil that ended up on the cover is because that is still the most important tool in my classroom.
Yeah. I love that. In fact, last week's episode was all about how we still need to balance, with all of the technology that's in our classroom and in our lives, how we really need to balance the physical and the holding of the pencil and the talking and, having conferences with your peers, and how we can't just rely on whether it's typing on the screen or, relying on a bot to help us. It's just so important that we don't lose that human aspect of all of this.
Yes.
As we learn how to work with all of this. So I really like that. You know that feeling of walking into your classroom and wondering if you even have the energy to face the day, that weight in your chest, the pressure to be everything to everyone, the exhaustion that comes from trying to manage behaviors and meet expectations and still be that creative, inspiring teacher you dreamed of being? My friend, you are not alone in this. Every teacher has stood where you are right now, tired, doubting, and wondering if it's possible to turn things around. Well, I'm here to tell you it is possible. The Classroom Reset Group Coaching Program is that bridge back to the teacher you want to be. Let's walk it together. Inside, we'll explore practical, creative strategies to keep your students engaged and excited to learn, like dynamic classroom management tips that actually work and arts-based activities that boost your students' social and emotional growth. The best part? These approaches will feel natural, effortless, and like second nature in your everyday teaching. That's the point. This isn't about doing more. This is about resetting what you already do. It's like a spa day for your teacher soul, but with the strategy that transforms your classroom. Check it out at theinspiredclassroom.com/reset. That's theinspiredclassroom.com/RESET. Now, back to our interview. All right. Can you give us an example of like a project or a writing assignment that you've actually done that incorporates some AI and chat GPT
Yes.
type stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the assignments I think that is most effective to show how AI can be used is actually our research paper. I think
Mm.
every teacher, at least at my level, does something with research,
Oh,
and
yes. All the way
that
down to first grade.
yes,
We're researching something.
yes, which is so important.
Yes.
Even Henry, my 10-year-old, I showed him a little bit of how to use AI to help him in his Oregon Trail research.
Nice.
But at the high school level, this is where like the right first rule might get bent a little bit because I think the key to surviving research in my world for both them and me is to ensure that this is something they truly are passionate about.
Mm.
And also, I have to ensure that any major summative writing assignment, I try really hard to make sure they can submit to a writing contest or it leaves my classroom. It's never just between them and me, because I feel like that makes it more real world. So we always write to the New York Times. They have an open letter contest in April of every year. So it's about a 500-word research open letter. And I have a school AI bot. School AI is a protected AI, generative AI bot that we can use in my district. And they have this little space, it's called a sidekick. And with some time and planning, I can train it to kind of be my sidekick. It's meant to answer student questions outside of class if they're working on the weekend, if I'm workshopping with these 8 students over here and this group over here needs some extra support, they can use it in class. And I pour in everything I have for my research unit into this bot. And I instruct it to help guide my students towards coming up with a topic that they really like. And I'm always struck, one of the benefits of school AI that doesn't exist in Gemini, ChatGPT, or Copilot is I have access to every interaction with my students. So if they are using a generative AI source like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Copilot, I never get to see that. It's like a letter between you and I. So there's no proof that they actually used it or didn't use it. But with School AI, I have documentation of everything and I can see how they're interacting with it. And one of the things I really like about how it guides students is sometimes in my world, I have students who might be a perfectionist or might be a little nervous to ask questions or to say that they're unsure about something because they want a really good grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I see those barriers come down when they're talking with AI. I saw a student who's a stellar student say to my school AI bot, "Do you think this is a strong enough topic?" And the school AI bot came back very supportive. And then she said, "I'm just not sure that this could be a research paper." And then it came back and said, "Here are 3 things you could do for your research paper." And she was like, "Thank you so much." And then I watched her take those 3 things from school AI. And there's this other kind of, it's not really a generative AI source, but it's called Perplexity. It's a search engine.
Mm-hmm.
And we can plug in, this is what I want to do for my research paper. And it comes up with hyperlinked sources. So it can help students who struggle to find some sources. And if I'm not teaching them to find sources, I really just want them to synthesize those ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Then Perplexity can help them find those sources. They can read them, they can start synthesizing the ideas, and then they can start to write their open research paper.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. That's great.
Yes.
And it gives, I'm hoping that also gives some teachers some really solid insight to how they can ask their school and ask their district to really get ahead of the game here.
Yes.
And use something like School AI, where you do have a little bit more control. Insight into what your students are actually doing. And I can only imagine that is something that, can let the parents rest assured that
Yes.
it's being used in an ethical way.
Yes, and it's
Yeah.
safe. And there's other elements of school AI that I have played around with a teeny tiny bit. Like there's the ability to talk to a historical figure, which is kind of a cool thing that teachers can create.
Mm-hmm.
Henry was doing a research paper last year on Mae Jemison. And even though she's still alive and not historical, there was a bot on there and he could ask questions. And I have my students play around with that when we read whole class novels.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can actually ask questions of the bot. And I always offer stickers if they ever find something the bot got wrong. Like if
Mm.
they said my reading of the book would actually say this instead of what it's saying, there's some deep critical thinking that might not have been possible
Yeah.
before. Being able to ask Gemini or ChatGPT to answer as William Shakespeare would answer and then
Yeah.
push back on that.
Yeah.
My high school students love to disagree. They don't necessarily disagree with me because I'm the teacher and like the source of truth, but with
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
bot, they will totally push back on whatever a generative AI bot has said. And then there's a cool summative paper. It's not really a 5 paragraph essay because AI can do that
Mm-hmm.
in 3 seconds and do it pretty well. And it's even harder now to spot if a bot wrote it, but they can say, this is what it said, this is what the book said, and here's where I agree or disagree. And that's
Mm.
a really cool way to show their understanding of a whole class novel.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the hesitancies that I have with doing something with an AI like a ChatGPT or a Gemini or what have you is that you can have legitimate conversations with them. And that can bring you down a big rabbit hole. And I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
conversation for another day, but it is something to, that kind of is an
Yeah.
underlying concern of mine. I can sometimes see it myself when I'm working with chat gpt on something, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll type something up and I'll send it out and ask for whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it will say, oh, Elizabeth, you did such a great job, and da da da, would you like me to do this and this and this and this for you? And it's like
Yes.
you can sense that it's trying to you know envelop you in a conversation.
Yes.
And it's one of those
Yes.
things that I think can be so tricky,
It can.
and confused. I would assume,
Yep.
to me, I can put myself on pause and be like, okay, I'm not having a conversation with you. I'm not going to develop
Right.
this relationship with you.
Right.
Um, and, but I can imagine that it might be a little confusing for some kids. Do you
Yes.
find that any students kind of get wrapped up at all with any of that type of back and forth?
Yeah. I think that would be more apparent with ChatGPT,
Mm.
Gemini,
Mm-hmm.
those things which I don't have access to their conversations unless they choose to share them with me. But
Right.
oftentimes, if they're using ChatGPT, it might not be for the most transparent reasons. Like they might be using it to try and do their homework and it's
Right.
on their private account or their phone.
Yeah.
School AI, you can train it to not do those things. You can train it to just answer the question and stop, not keep
Mm.
re-engaging, which
Yep.
I think is really powerful. And Perplexity does not have that conversational aspect. It's more of like a search engine on steroids. Like it will give you
Yeah.
exactly what you want, and then sometimes it will answer for you, but then that's it. There's no like pull back in. So
Mm-hmm.
those things for academic uses don't necessarily have that same pull.
Yeah.
I have seen a little bit, like we have used it for some of our more writing heavy, like we have a poetry unit, and students write their own slam or spoken word poetry, like I was saying at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. And sometimes I see students sharing a little more of their uncertainties. And I think they want another entity to just say that their writing is strong enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen like barriers break down. I have some students who are dyslexic and sometimes are really afraid to share their writing. And that support from something that's like outside or like a third party,
Yeah.
I think has helped them get that confidence that they need for their writing. But I haven't seen anyone necessarily go too far, like, this is my new friend and I want it to give me advice on my outfit or whatever, which I'm sure it can do.
Right. It,
I haven't
yeah,
seen that yet.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just another little thing to just kind of be kind of looking out for as we're
Yes.
as we're navigating all of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of like that type of thing in ethics, I know a lot of teachers worry
Hmm.
about things like plagiarism,
Hmm.
students just starting to use this as a crutch, a way
Hmm.
for them to think for them. In fact, this morning, I was just typing up an email to another teacher who had asked a question, and I'm writing up my response, and I'm like, this could be faster if I just asked ChatGPT. And I'm like,
Hmm.
no, I am smart enough to respond with my own words. And, it's like, I just, again, like, sometimes you can use these as a crutch and you've got to kind of like
Yeah.
get a handle on a new tool.
Yes. I know. I feel the cognitive offloading, I think, is the new terminology. That is real. And it is lovely in many ways to be able to delegate some of the tasks to ChatGPT as the teacher.
Yes.
Email writing. I know how to write an email, and sometimes we have so many to do, and
Yep.
sometimes it can do it faster and it can do it better. And I have definitely used it to help adjust tone sometimes, or to help
Mm.
expand things
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. Um, I have also judged others because there are tells sometimes to emails. Like if you're new to ChatGPT,
Yep.
um, just be aware that it will say like, absolutely, here is an email with a more professional tone at the very beginning. And then at the end, it will say, let me know if you would like to expand that. And if you just hit copy and send that, those two things go along with your email. And that has happened many
It's
times.
happened to me
Um,
too. Like receiving an email like that, I'm like,
you definitely use
someone didn't
ChatGPT to write
look.
that. Yes. Or the like little emojis or icons that it will produce. Those are pretty apparent as well.
Yes.
But I think it's forcing me to be a little bit more intentional in what I'm asking my students to do. Um, because they can easily cognitively offload a lot of my homework assignments to ChatGPT when they're at home. And
Yes.
it's harder and harder to tell if they are doing that. So I have to say to myself, why am I giving them this homework assignment? Um, and is this something we could do in class where I have more control? If this is
Mm.
something I truly want them to like think real hard about and struggle with, it has to be done in class. I can't send them home to do it anymore. So I've been thinking a lot about next year, um, like the old flipped classroom.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Could they watch the review video on the chapter we're going to discuss, and then the homework questions they would have answered while reading that chapter are done in class where they don't have their computers. I don't think
Yeah.
going back to pen and paper is definitely the answer, but it's absolutely a tool. I think we've gone so far into the tech world. We all have Chromebooks. All of the students at the high school are given one at the very beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But I like being able to put those away and put the cell phones away and just have the pen and paper so we can think about our answers. So that'll be more of my plan for next year, is to be really intentional about what I'm asking them to do. And if I'm cognitively offloading my emails, I don't need to learn how to write an email. So I don't feel as guilty about that. If I'm writing the book, then ChatGPT has no place in that, except maybe as possibly a brainstormer, or it helps come up with the title for sure, because trying to come up with titles is challenging.
Yeah.
But those are things that I know I need to continue to put myself into, and I don't want to offload that. Trying to model that is the only way I think students will be able to see that. And that's where like personal narratives and poetry, how much do you ask students to assemble something? They can assemble a essay on To Kill a Mockingbird really easily, but if I'm asking them to author a short story or a personal narrative about their life, then hopefully they're less hesitant to let somebody else do the speaking for them, and they
Mm.
can honor their own voice and experiences.
Yeah. And I think that's really what it's all about, is really being able to have the students understand that writing is an extension of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and utilizing this as a tool is
Mm-hmm.
fine. But
Mm-hmm.
this really does need to come from you, because you have so much to say. You have so
Mm-hmm.
much inside of you that you need to bring out, and it needs to be truly from you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit about like what our role is as a
Mm.
teacher. And I mean, you're even, you've written the book literally, and you're
Mm-hmm.
still evolving as, what is my role here as a
Yeah.
teacher? And I think we're going to be doing that for the next decade or so
Yeah.
anyway, because this is going to be becoming more and more sophisticated and more ingrained in our everyday lives.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you see is our role as a teacher as we're starting to use more and more AI in our
Mm-hmm.
classrooms? Yeah.
I really think, and I've kind of thought this even before AI, and I wonder if this is part of the reason why I wasn't so afraid of it. But I've always viewed teachers' roles as more of a coach, even though
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an athlete and I've never coached
Yeah.
before. This idea of showing or demonstrating a skill. Maybe it's coming up with a really powerful lead or using sensory details. But if I don't model how to do that, and then I don't struggle through how to do that in front of my students on the board or in my own notebook under a document camera, I don't know how I can expect them to know how to do that. And I think AI is the exact same thing. We sometimes think that students are more digital natives than we are,
Mm.
but AI is so different from anything else that is out there. It's not the same as when the internet was born or a graphing calculator. It's so much more than that. And those
Yeah.
analogies, I think sometimes we think they're going to know more about it or they're going to know how to use it properly, and they don't. Even my seniors don't fully know what it's capable of, and they don't know why it does what it does.
Mm.
And I think having to show them and explain that and understanding it myself before I even allow for it to have a part in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to be able to coach them through that. And I have to be able to fail, even if I'm just making the failure for their benefit,
Yeah.
and modeling my way of struggling through like
Mm-hmm.
how to write this piece. Um, it's easy to give them models or to say like this is how you, I don't know, shoot a free throw, but you have to actually break it down and show them that skill, as a coach, as a
Yeah.
facilitator,
Mm-hmm.
more than just the source of absolute truth, the guide on the side instead of the sage on the stage, whatever that saying
Yes.
is.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It just goes back
Mm-hmm.
to, just like with everything else, it just goes back to plain old good teaching.
Yeah.
We're guiding them through, we're modeling, we're
Yep.
allowing them to struggle in a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with any math skill that they're going to learn that we're going to teach them. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
with playing instruments. It's the same with
Mm-hmm.
how we have to now really demonstrate social emotional skills. It's
Mm-hmm.
all comes down to plain old good teaching.
Yeah. And I think the
Yeah.
focus too, like you were saying, the social and emotional skills,
Mm-hmm.
um, in high school, we can be really content heavy. Um, and we've had these things in my world called work study practices that have been around for like 15 years. And I'm supposed to twice a year just kind of check off how my students are doing in these things. And it dawned on me at the end of last year after writing this book that those work study skills are the things AI can't do for my kids. They are
Mm-hmm.
things like
Amen.
self direction, they are critical thinking, creative thinking, collaboration, empathy.
Yep.
And I was just in a workshop yesterday where they had this thing about the 15 skills employers want the most. And
Yep.
every single one of those work study practices were up on that screen. And, when if we're worried about students using AI in a maybe a dishonest way. They're
Mm-hmm.
using it to cognitively offload that question and they're just trying to sneak it in. Leaning more on those skills, those instances where we still talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the only way around it because there's no plagiarism detection software out there that is accurate. It
Yeah.
flags students who haven't used AI far more than students who have. It flags autistic
Really?
writers more, yes. And it flags ELL students or ELL writers far more than anyone else.
Oh, wow.
So any of these tools that schools or universities lean on, not only can they not tell you how they determined this was AI, there's no actual, you can't look behind the scenes. So how do you say that to a parent?
Hmm.
But also, I feel that is ruining my relationship with my readers and writers if I'm going to automatically accuse someone of using AI when you can't prove it, which is kind of a struggle, I think, for teachers. There's no really AI proof assignments. There are AI resistant things that we can do, but really kind of getting out in front of it and at least showing an ethical use of it um, is far better than being a plagiarism investigator for the rest of my
Yeah.
career.
Yes.
I can't do that.
No. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Well, so you are high school,
Yes.
but this is also going to, if it hasn't already,
Mm-hmm.
filter down to middle and elementary school. And I'm curious, with all the research that you've done,
Mm-hmm.
when should we start implementing this type of learning and using this as a tool into
Mm-hmm.
our curriculum?
Well, definitely high school. I mean, that's an easy one.
Mm-hmm.
Middle school, I think starting to ethically discuss how to use it in essays or in writing or in homework is
Mm-hmm.
important. I see a little bit, I'm on the AI committee for my district. And so we were talking a little bit about what would K through 2 look like and what would 3 through 5 look like.
Yeah.
And the determination was more that responsibility and maybe a little bit of digital literacy in K through 2, but that teachers can use it as cool ways to really personalize and scaffold and
Mm-hmm.
differentiate
Mm-hmm.
far faster than anything else. Brisk is another tool that I use a lot. Uh, Brisk teaching is like a Chrome extension that can live in your Chrome. So if
Yeah.
anyone is a Google Classroom type of school, it's huge, and it can give feedback on writing. Although it shouldn't grade. This is like a whole nother conversation. I have an article coming out at the end of this month at eSchool News about how we shouldn't use AI to grade. That's a whole
Mm.
nother topic,
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
but it can differentiate. In my class last year, I had students scoring at the second grade reading level all the way up to, you know, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and
Yeah.
trying to do a research paper was challenging, but I can easily go in and level a piece of writing and have it look exactly like everyone else's. And I can do that before class starts. So those are kind of some of the cool ways I think elementary school teachers could use it. Somebody in the workshop yesterday was using it to create coloring pages and doing them in different to go connect with certain short stories.
Yeah.
Um, you could use it so that students have conversations with their favorite characters and their favorite novels. And
Mm-hmm.
what I would do with that one, we did this with Lord of the Flies, is I just created the conversations on my own private ChatGPT account and then I printed them out and gave it to the students. So there's no interaction
Oh,
necessarily.
okay. Yeah.
We're just kind of doing it on paper and then we're talking about it. That's actually one of the ways I introduced it to the high school students early on, to reinforce the fact that it still hallucinates and get things wrong. I have it summarize the chapter they were supposed to read for homework the night before. And their quiz question is to highlight the thing it got wrong. And then
Mm-hmm.
I tell them, like, this is what happens when you use generative AI. It can get things wrong. And if you hand this in as your essay with your name on it, you're going to get that wrong, or you're going to perpetuate that bias or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And so those are other ways I think that teachers can start to use it a little bit with students.
Yeah.
Um, We did it a little bit with Henry and the Oregon Trail. We had it create a choose your own adventure, because in his Oregon Trail unit, they weren't playing the game, so no one died of dysentery or a rattlesnake bite, like happened to me when I played all the
Yes.
time. So I would say to him, like, "Did you die of a rattlesnake bite or dysentery?" And he's like, "No." So we had ChatGPT do a choose your own adventure, and it would create a storyline and then say, choose these two options. And I would ask him and type in what he
Uh-huh.
chose. And it got him a little bit more engaged, I think,
Hmm.
in that story. And then with math, um, the way that math is taught now is, I struggle sometimes with it as well, but
Mm.
he'll come home with a math worksheet to do, and I will snap a picture of it to my ChatGPT, and I will say, help my son understand this math problem. And then I will type in the things that he's really interested in, or the musician he likes now, or whatever. And it will recreate it and teach him and talk to him in a way that's a little bit more engaging, so that he can finally actually do the problem, but understand a little bit more the reason behind it.
That's hilarious. And
Yeah.
what a great way to use ChatGPT. Thinking
Yeah.
outside the box, figuring out ways
Yes.
to personalize it,
Yes.
and make it something so that it's really useful and helpful.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, I can only imagine that just like with everything else we want to do with our students, we teachers need some training.
Yeah.
And that's where you come in, Kristina. So tell us a little bit more about where we can learn about this topic and where
Hmm.
we can get a copy of your book. And
Awesome.
maybe even get in touch with you if people have some
Yeah.
extra questions.
Yes, I would love to answer any and all questions. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I get a lot of my knowledge from the people I follow. So there's a really cool base of people who are far smarter about AI and tech than I am. But LinkedIn for sure. The book is cheapest on the Heinemann website, but I think it's a 2 week shipping, and it's also up on Amazon.
Yes.
So those are two places to get the book from. Um, we are presenting all over next year. So I don't know if any of your listeners are in Denver, but we'll be at NCTE. We'll be in Wisconsin for their reading association, and then we're presenting at the Massachusetts Reading Association in April.
Awesome.
So lots of reading. Um, and in terms of training, it really is getting in there and playing around with it, and understanding. I think the one tip I would give a new teacher who wants to play around with ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, they're all really the same, is to understand that the paid versions are more robust than the free versions,
Mm-hmm.
and to not treat it like a search engine. I think sometimes when we're new to it, we like open up the search bar and we type in our query like we would do for Google, but telling the generative AI bot the role you want it to take. You are a veteran English teacher who is teaching a class, and describe your students, and then say specifically what you want it to create for you. It can create 12 things, probably 25 things that you ask it,
Yes.
and you can really type in a whole box. I mean, I have the paid version, and I have uploaded an entire unit plan that was given to me. I had
Mm-hmm.
to teach an argument and debate class for somebody who went on maternity leave and we couldn't find a sub. And she just gave me her unit and said, here. And I had an extra 6 class now, so barely any time to plan for it. But with careful prompting and reprompting, it's important to know that the thread can continue for months, even a year later, and it will pick
Yeah.
up where you left off. That has been huge, because sometimes we'll use ChatGPT and think, oh, it didn't do anything. And it's because we didn't prompt it the right way. We prompted it like we might Google. Um,
Right.
so those are the ways to absolutely get some training in, but really playing around with it is
Yeah.
the best way.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you mentioned those couple of things when you're using ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that you can be as specific and
Yes.
detailed and overly detailed as humanly possible.
Yes.
One trick that I've used, that I can't stop using, is hitting the microphone button on my keyboard and just
Yes.
talking. And I can just
Yes.
ramble and ramble and ramble and tell it everything
Yes.
that I'm looking for and what I
Mm-hmm.
need, and it
Mm-hmm.
will understand it. And then,
Yes.
like you said, copying and pasting huge
Yeah.
documents, totally fine.
A whole
Putting it in
PDF.
there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
And just giving it as much information that you
Mm-hmm.
want it to have,
Mm-hmm.
and then asking it to do something, and it
Yes.
will just magically pop it out.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I teach a class as well for law enforcement officers at my uncle's company up in Maine, how to use ChatGPT to help them with their report writing and
Awesome.
how to ethically use it. And one of the
Nice.
things we discovered is when they're doing like an OUI stop, a lot of their notes will be on their notebook or pen and paper. So you can even upload, especially if you have the app, a picture of your handwritten notes and include it in your thread, and it will read what you wrote and
No kidding.
include that. It's pretty shocking. So we show them how they can go from the notes, they can go from what they recorded to dispatch. They're like you
Mm-hmm.
were saying, talking into it, and then also typing, and it can compile it all into a report,
Yeah.
which is fascinating. It can do pretty much anything we think or want.
Yeah.
A little scary.
Yes. And at speed. And I think that that
Yes.
is a great tool for us
Yes.
teachers.
Yes. I agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kristina. This was really, really a great conversation. And I want to encourage everybody to go out, check out the book. We'll put the link and everything in the show notes, and check out my amazing sister-in-law and all the fantastic things she's doing in her high school classrooms. And in particular with AI, keeping ahead of it, keeping ahead of the game, girl.
Trying at least. Thank you. This was great.
You're welcome. I hope this episode inspired you, encouraged you, or gave you a fresh idea to try. And if so, I would love for you to take a screenshot and text it to one of your teaching buddies. I'm so grateful that you landed here with me today, and it would mean the world to me if you would leave me a review over on Apple Podcast. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. This is Elizabeth Peterson reminding you to get inspired so you can be inspiring to your students and enjoy teaching again.